Welcome. This is Accounting with Bennett Tchaikovsky. Our topic today is going to be inventory costing using the periodic methods, and then we're going to look at FIFO perpetual. Okay, so what exactly does periodic mean? Well, when we're looking at periodic, instead of looking at every single sale individually, as we will be doing with the perpetual methods, we're essentially going to assume that we're going to disregard these dates of sale, and we're going to assume that all sales happened at the very end of that particular accounting period. So again, with periodic, this is much easier than perpetual because right here, we're going to basically assume that everything happened right here at the very, very end of the period. The first method we are going to look at is last in, first out, or LIFO periodic. So LIFO, last in, first out, periodic. And when we're doing inventory costing, remember, we've computed our constants, and we did that in a previous video. We had here goods available for sale, we had total units available for sale, we had total units sold, and we had total units in our ending inventory, as well as total sales dollars. These numbers do not change, and as we're going through all these methods, we're trying to figure out how much of this $68,500 goes into cost of goods sold, and then the remaining amount goes into our ending inventory. So when I'm doing last in, first out periodic, so I need to take the cost of goods sold, 16,000 units. And the way I'm going to kind of approach this is my last goods in are my first ones that I take to cost of goods sold. So here, we're going to basically take the inventory date. We'll have the units, the cost per unit, and we'll have our total cost of goods sold. So we've got 16,000 units that we need to take to cost of goods sold. Where do we start? So we're going to start right here. Basically, our last goods in are the first goods that are taken to cost of goods sold. So we're going to pull from January 29th, 2020. We're going to pull 5,000 units at a cost of $5 per unit for a total cost of goods sold of $25,000. Okay, sorry about the formatting, guys. It's everybody. We're just kind of going through here and having some fun. There we go, perfect. So what's really important is once I assign once I take it out of inventory and put it down here, I basically need to remove it from my cost pool. So, or basically my cost ledger. So here I've got 5,000 units minus 5,000. So I'm going to take this out. And I messed this one up. I'm sorry, guys. I was supposed to actually do this before. Let me just hard code these in. Wow, lagging type Tchaikovsky. Okay. So I'm going to remove this here, and then I ask myself, I need to take 16,000 units to cost of goods sold. Am I done yet? The answer is no. So I again go up here to this next purchase, or on 1/26/20. I'm going to take all 4,000 units and take this down here to cost of goods sold. So I'm going to get a total here of 16,000. Now, once I removed it, so I'm putting it down into cost of goods sold, I need to take it out here. So as we can see, as of right now, I'm only at 9,000 units. I need to take 16,000 units to cost of goods sold, so I need to keep going. My next inventory that I had purchased that I need to take to cost of goods sold is here. Is going to be 1/17/20. This will be for 2,000 units at a price of $2.50 per unit. for a total of $5,000. So once this 2,000 units is gone, we need to remove it. And we're now sitting at 11,000 units. So we need more inventory. So to get there, by coincidence or by my writing this particular problem in this way, we're going to take these 5,000 units here from 1/12/20, and this will give us a total of 16,000 units to cost of goods sold. My 5,000 units were priced at $2 per unit, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this from my inventory ledgers, and I now have 16,000 units with a cost of goods sold of 56,000. So if you've been following along with what we've been doing in terms of our other presentations and the like, what we're going to do at this point in time is we're going to basically say, okay, I know that my goods available for sale is equal to my, or I should say my goods available for sale minus what I sold is equal to my ending inventory. So right here, I've got my gas of 68,500. We'll just pull that from up here. Less my cost of goods sold, or 56,000, gives me my ending inventory of 12,500. So, and I know I've done this correctly because right here, my cost of goods sold plus my ending inventory must equal my goods available for sale. Now, what's interesting about this problem in particular is there may have been an easier way to do this particular question. When I've gone through and assigned all these items here to cost of goods sold, I'm left with 10,000 units at $1.25 per unit, or $12,500. So here, I know I did this correctly because this amount here, this amount here matches this. I know that the 10,000 units I have in my ending inventory after everything else was sold was right here. And if I wanted to take a different approach to this problem, what I always love is the opposite of LIFO is fish, or first in, still here. And I shouldn't say the opposite of LIFO, but another way of looking at LIFO. And what I could have done is I could have said, well, wait a second. Of all these different items here, and we can go back and restore these here through the magic of Microsoft Excel. And if I go in here and look at this and I say, well, wait a second, I have 10,000 units in my ending inventory. Under LIFO periodic, the units that will be remaining in my ending inventory will be really my first units. So an alternative is I could say, well, my goods, or I should say that my ending inventory, 10,000 units, is really going to be comprised of my January 1st, 2020 date of 10,000 units at $1.25 per unit, or $12,500. And once I've kind of like looked at this here, I can say, okay, so 10,000 units, so my totals here, 10,000 units I have remaining in my ending inventory, and that has a dollar value of 12,500. What happens next is I can say then, well, if goods available for sale minus cost of goods sold equals my ending inventory, then that means that goods available for sale equals my ending inventory plus my cost of goods sold, which I could also write this as goods available for sale minus my ending inventory equals cost of goods sold. So literally by inference right here, I can take goods available for sale, same number, minus my ending inventory, which is going to be, I really need to take Microsoft Excel at Irvine Valley College, and this will give me my cost of goods sold. Now, this number here is the same. Again, there are lots of different ways to do these types of questions. You just need to figure out which is best for you. However, in any event, what you need to be doing is basically calculating it both ways. We went through here and we assigned it to cost of goods sold, and kind of going back to what we did for LIFO periodic, we did last in, first out. We took all of these amounts here. We then basically expensed these to cost of goods sold, and we ended up with $56,000. And again, what you're going to notice here is that, well, if we expense this $56,000, we should have $12,500 left, which happens to be what is in our beginning inventory. Okay, so that is LIFO periodic. The next method we're going to be looking at is weighted average periodic. Now, with weighted average periodic, what we're trying to figure out is what is the weighted average cost of my inventory that I purchased. And so the way we're going to figure this out is we're going to basically say here, so we're going to say weighted average periodic, and I'll write this above. Oh, hold on. Okay. Weighted average periodic. So here I'm going to have my total gas, or my goods available for sale. And remember, this is why we go through and we compute the constants. So here I'm going to have my total goods available for sale, and this is going to be 68,500. I'm going to divide this by my total units available for sale of 26,000. And what this is going to give me is a weighted average cost per unit of $2.63. And this is based for my inventory. And if we kind of think about this, right, this is the average cost I paid per unit of this inventory. So, and basically we'll do this here. We'll do 2.63 rounded, because we see this number kind of gets a little bit crazy. Okay. So once I have a weighted average cost per unit, what I then need to do is relatively simple. I sold 16,000 units. So here I'm going to take 16,000 units sold times $2.63 per unit for a total of 42,080. Now, just note here that before I turn this into a dollar amount, it was before it was a comma, and I'm going to have a little bit of a weird rounding here. So I rounded this to $2.63. Okay, so my 42,080 is my cost of goods sold. Now, similar to the other methods we've been using, right here, we're going to have cost of goods sold, so my goods available for sale of 68,500 less my cost of goods sold, or 42,080, which is going to give me my ending inventory of 26,420. So right over here, my ending inventory is 26,420 because I know that my goods available for sale, remember what we're doing in inventory costing, is we're taking this goods available for sale and we're allocating a certain amount to cost of goods sold, and the remaining amount will be going to ending inventory. The way I can check my work is that if I take 10,000 units in ending inventory, and I multiply that by $2.63, what I'm going to end up with is approximately, doesn't like that number. I'm going to end up with approximately, yikes, hold on, times $2.63. I'm going to get 26,300, which is slightly less than this because I'm using the rounded number. So, but I know that it's relatively close enough where I feel okay with this. If I were to do this problem using unrounded numbers, and say if I took this 16,000 units, and if I took the unrounded number, I'm going to come up with a different number here for my cost of goods sold. And this number right here will be 153.85. So here we go with rounded. If we have unrounded, so here my unrounded cost of goods sold, 42,153.85. My ending inventory is now 26,346.15. So to do, if I do an unrounded check, basically right here, I'm going to take 10,000 units and then my cost per unit. So this number is exact to this right here. The reason is because again, because I rounded, I'm getting funkier numbers. Okay, so that is weighted average periodic. Again, what we've done is we've taken a weighted average of my goods available for sale. And again, because we're using a periodic method, we assume that all sales happened at the very end of the period. So what I'm doing is I'm taking an overall average, which is my goods available for sale, divided by my units available for sale, coming up with an average weighted cost per unit. I'm going to go ahead and take that 16,000 units. I'm going to multiply it by $2.63, and it comes up to be 42,080. I then subtract that from cost of goods sold to get to my ending inventory. Now, because we used a rounded number on this part right here initially, when I look at this number here, I'm going to get here 26,300 when I'm doing my check. And the way I'm checking this is I'm taking my units and ending inventory and multiplying it by the weighted average. But it's slightly off here because of the rounding. But if I did an unrounded part, right here, I would get, my numbers would come up exactly to be correct. So that is weighted average periodic. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to be moving into FIFO periodic. And with FIFO periodic, what we're saying are the first goods in are the first goods that are taken to cost of goods sold. So with FIFO periodic, first in, first out, and I need 16,000 units. And let's go ahead and borrow. Let's go ahead and get some creative licensing from what I was doing previously. So first in, first out, first goods in are the first ones expensed to cost of goods sold. So here I have 1,120, 10,000 units. My cost per unit is $1.25 per unit for a total amount here of 12,500. Okay, so I need to take a total of 16,000 units here to my cost of goods sold. Now what I'm going to do, so once I have this here, I've got to remove this 10,000 units. So this amount here this amount here will be 0. Okay. I then go to my next purchase, which happened to be on January 12th, 2020. This was 5,000 units at a cost of $2 per unit for a total cost of goods sold of 10,000. Notice here, I need to get to 16,000 units. I'm right now at 15, so I'm getting kind of close. So here, this was 5,000 units minus 5,000. So I need to remove this from my inventory. Okay. Now, how many more units do I need? I sold 16,000 units, and I'm at 15. So to get to this 16, I need another 1,000 units. Remember, this 16,000 here, right, has to match, and this is under all of the different costing methods. This is where this number has to come from. So what I'm going to do is I'm only need 1,000 units. So I'm going to take, I had 2,000 units here. I'm going to take 1,000 units sold, and now I'm going to end up with 1,000. So I'm going to take this from my January 17th, 2020 purchase here at $2.50, and I come up with $2,500 for that one particular sale in terms of cost of goods sold. So now what I do, similar to my other methods, is I'm going to add up my total cost of goods sold. Then what I'm going to go through and do is I'm going to say, okay, how do I figure my ending inventory? Once I have cost of goods sold, I can figure out my ending inventory. I'm going to take my goods available for sale, or 68,500, minus my cost of goods sold, or 25,000. This will give me my ending inventory of 43,500. So this is my ending inventory. How can I check to see if this amount was correct? Well, what I would do is I would look at my ledgers and I would see right here that, well, what did I have remaining in my ending inventory? I see that I had 1,000, 4,000 units from the 26th, 5,000 units from the 29th, so that this number right here is going to be 10,000. This number here is 10,000. And I calculated my ending inventory value to be 43,500. So I've got 1,000 times 250 or 2,500, 4,000 times $4 per unit at 16,000, and then 5,000 times 5 per unit at 25,000. So my total amount of my ending inventory matches what I have here. So again, I don't need to do this both ways. It's a way of checking your work. Also, when I'm writing numbers over here, this is really to help you as you are going through and doing these problems. And I want to really emphasize to you that if you're taking my class, doing things on a spreadsheet is great. However, the problem is when you take my exams, and this is as of fall of 2018, you're going to be given pencil and paper, or, and you're going to have to write it out. The key with accounting is you're learning a skill. That skill helps us get a job. You need to write it out, right? Let's spell it out for you, Francis, a little Deadpool. No, we're not going to do it like that. What we need to do, though, is we need to write it out. Repetition in accounting is absolutely critical. So before I make this into a 10-hour excursion, let's go on to the last method we're going to be looking at. And this is going to be, this is going to be FIFO perpetual. So under FIFO perpetual, or first in, first out, we're going to take 16,000 units to cost of goods sold. And the difference here with perpetual is unlike periodic, where we assume that all sales happened at the end of the period, right? We said all 16,000 happened here, so we look at things on a overall basis. With FIFO perpetual and with any perpetual method, we need to look at each sale date individually and determine what exactly was in inventory as of that particular date. So our first date of sale was January 14th. Changed my formatting. So first in, first out. I've got basically here 7,000 units that I need to take to cost of goods sold. Remember that I need 16,000 units, but because I'm using perpetual, I need to go in chronological order of my sales and see what was there on that particular date. So my units here, I've got 7,000 units. Where do I take it from? So first in, first out. I'm going to take here 10,000 units minus 7,000 units, sale from 1/14. And I'm going to come up here and basically get, sorry guys, excuse me, sorry everybody, I'm trying to change the way I speak to be more correct. I have no plans on running for the Supreme Court anytime soon, and I couldn't anyways because I can't play the devil's triangle. Okay, so January, I can't make stuff up. So right here, my cost per unit is going to be $1.25 from this inventory. So here my total, or my cost of goods sold, is going to be 7,000 times $1.25, or 8,750. Notice here, because I sold 7,000 of these units, I need to remove this here like I indicated over here, and I now have 3,000 units left. So I've done this here for 7,000. What's my magic number? I need to get to 16,000 sold units. So I'm doing perpetual. I go to my next date of sale, 1/21/20. And here I sold 6,000 units. And the question is, where do I take these from? So I sold 6,000 units. First in, first out. So I'm going to take these 3,000 units first. So right over here, I've got 3,000. Let's make this a little bit nicer. Sorry, guys. Okay. So I'm going to take 3,000 from my purchase date or my beginning inventory from January 1st, 2020 at a cost per unit of $1.25 for a total here of 3,750. Now notice here in terms of, wow, hold on. Notice here that when I'm doing my sales, right, this is 1/14, 7,000 units. This was 1/21, 6,000 units. So notice here, I'm not done. I'm taking 3,000 units from my January 21st sale, okay? And I need more units, right? Because I need this total down here to be 16,000, and I only had 3,000 left. So what I need to do next is I need to then go to my next purchase. So how many of these 5,000 units do I need to take? Well, I sold 6,000 on January 21st. I pulled 3,000 from here, what was remaining, so I need another 3,000 units. So we'll say 5,000 units minus 3,000 sale on 1. So right here, so it's the sale. So right here, I'm going to take from my 1/12/20 purchase, I'm going to take another 3,000 units at $2 per unit for a total here of 6,000. Once I put this 3,000 into my cost, took it from my cost pool, I need to reduce this, going from 5,000 now down to 2,000. Why? I'm basically taking 3,000 of those units and I took them to cost of goods sold. Notice also here too, I sold 6,000 units. I took 3,000 of them from my beginning inventory because we're doing FIFO, first in, first out to cost of goods sold. And then right over here, 3,000 from my January 12th, 2020 purchase. Okay, go down to my next date of sale. I'm going in chronological order. And right over here on January 27th, I sold 3,000 units. So 1/27, 3,000 units. So where do I pull these from? First in, first out. So this sale here of 3,000 units, I'm going to grab these 2,000 units first, or 1/12/20, 2,000 units at a price of $2 per unit. And this will give me a cost of goods sold of 4,000. So now we have here 2,000 units minus 2,000 from the sale of 1/27. Okay. And if I look down here, am I done? No, I'm not. I have only 15,000 units that I've taken to cost of goods sold. I need a total of 16,000. So this purchase here is now gone because I took it to cost of goods sold, and I need another 1,000 units. So first in, first out. So now I'm going to take this here from 1/17/20, 1,000 units. Now I only need 1,000 units here, okay? And this is going to be at 250. So I'm going to pull 2,000 units minus the 1,000 sale from 1/27 equals 1,000 remaining. And let's make this here. So I've got here 1,000. Okay, so that's basically what I had left. And when I add up everything that I've taken, uh-oh, doesn't like that. Let's do just a regular sum. Yes, I know I need to take an Excel class at Irvine Valley College. So right over here, I've got a total cost of goods sold of $25,000, okay? Now that was a lot of work going through here and computing it, but again, because we were doing perpetual, I had to grab from different inventory baskets as we were going through. And notice here all the work I had to basically go through here and do. And again, for my exam, you're not going to need to show this. Wherever your instructor might be, they may have a different philosophy. So when I go through here and I'm looking at this now, I've got 16,000 at 25,000, 16,000 units sold, total cost of goods sold at 25,000. So to figure out my ending inventory, I'm going to take my goods available for sale of 68,500 minus my cost of goods sold of 25,000. Oh. And this here, wow, Tchaikovsky, great work. So my ending inventory is going to be 43,500. And if I went through and I did a check right here, This 43,000 is what we have remaining, or the January 17th, basically from the January 17th purchase, January 26th purchase, and the January 29th purchase at their respective values. But if you've been following along, and I know accounting is a lot of drama, a lot of fun, you know, it's good stuff. When I look at FIFO periodic, what do you notice? I notice here that my ending inventory of 43.5 and my cost of goods sold are exactly the same. Okay, so my ending inventory under FIFO perpetual and my cost of goods sold under FIFO perpetual are exactly the same as FIFO periodic. Which one is easier to do? Okay, and that answer is FIFO periodic. So when we have here, which is very important, is FIFO periodic and FIFO perpetual yield the same result. Okay, and this is the only costing method where this is true. Therefore, you only need to complete one method to obtain the answer for both. So I often recommend to my students to do FIFO periodic because it's easier. And let's kind of explore just for a second why that is in particular. When we're doing FIFO, we're always under assumption that the first goods in are the first goods out. What happens when we're doing LIFO perpetual, or basically I should say LIFO periodic, and the reason why you would get a different result is if I'm doing LIFO periodic, I'm basically going to grab some of these sales that are down here below, or basically these purchases that were down here below. And what's going to cause that difference is when we look at LIFO perpetual, you're really going here by the dates of sale. And so instead of grabbing from the bottom, you end up grabbing from earlier purchases if you happen to be using LIFO perpetual. So that's really a difference between, you know, LIFO perpetual, LIFO periodic, weighted average perpetual, weighted average periodic will get you different results because as you're going through here and doing the averaging, it's just where the last in, first out, and then the weighted average, you're going to come up with a different costing amount. For FIFO, because we're always taking the first goods and expensing those to cost of goods sold first, periodic and perpetual, it will not make a difference. So this conclusion right here, so FIFO periodic and FIFO perpetual will be yielding the same exact result. Therefore, you only need to complete one method. So in summary here, I've got all of these different amounts here. We computed the constants, the goods available for sale, units available for sale, units sold, units in ending inventory. Remember, this is really a question of cost allocation. Now, the interesting thing about all of these different methods is, let's go back here to, wow, all right, Tchaikovsky, let's figure out where we were. I'm violating literally every educational video on YouTube part. If we know that all these parts are the same, if my cost per unit was the same for every single purchase, would all of my results be the exact same for LIFO, FIFO, weighted average, periodic, and perpetual? And that answer is absolutely yes. We only get different results if there are different amounts here in terms of the cost per unit. So again, what our goal was here is that we've got this goods available for sale, which is never changing. We're just trying to figure out how are we basically going through and allocating the amount to cost of goods sold, which will ultimately give us our units and ending inventory, which is our ultimate goal with all of these inventory costing problems. Thank you for your time today. Have a great one, and I'll see you on the next video.